Many of you know that last year, during the tail end of the summer, I suddenly went on hiatus that didn't end until December, after which I picked up like nothing had happened and continued to make videos for everybody to love. Many of you may know that before I went on hiatus, I put up a few videos about it, and a few of you know that during that time I had been banned from Animal Jam on my main account, KijjiKon, and now I use an account called KijjiKon. But what none of you know is why I was banned from Animal Jam. What some of you might know is the information that I redacted from my first video about me being banned, in which I said I didn't know why I was banned. But I took that video down not long after and told the people who watched that video that video was out of date and to essentially leave Animal Jam alone. And that's because I was genuinely banned for a good reason on Animal Jam, but it hadn't really clicked in my head until that point. Because I was banned from Animal Jam for cracking accounts that were compromised during the data breach. I'm not kidding, nor am I going to try to excuse my actions, get away from them, or joke about them. This is going to be a serious video about what I did, why I did it, and what I have to say about it now. I intended to make this video much later than I am now, but due to an ex-friend of mine, I'm essentially having my hand forced to talk about it now. The first question and the obvious one, why didn't I talk about this right away? Well, the reason is that during the time period in which I did these things, I was extremely mentally compromised, and when I realized what I had done and the true reality and weight of what I had done was given to me, I realized that I needed to step away from the Animal Jam community. I knew then that if I had made a video apologizing about it or talking about it, it would have been pretty disingenuous, as I had just done it, and going to say, oh, I am so sorry, and I apologize and I'll never do it again, wouldn't really mean much out of the mouth of somebody who had just done it. And I realized that I was going through a lot and that the ways that I was coping with it was not at all healthy, not just towards myself, but towards the community that I claimed to love so much. So when I went on hiatus last summer, I didn't just go on hiatus to step away from Animal Jam. I went on hiatus to focus on myself, on my family, and my mental health. Now, what I want to be clear with now is the fact that while I will be discussing what led up to me doing these things, this does not by any means excuse what I've done, because I'm 19 years old. I may have been 18 then, but I was a full adult, and I knew what I did was wrong. In fact, I had made entire videos about the topic that I did, about how they were wrong and how they were damaging to the community and the people in it, and yet I did that anyways. And that doesn't excuse it. Even if I was mentally unwell, even if I was dealing with a lot of things, that is never an appropriate way to deal with stress. And that is never something that you can just write away with mental health as an excuse. However, what I do want to put forth and explain in this video is why I did it and how now, as an Animal Jam content creator, I am trying to repay the community to show that I am making active efforts to change, improve myself and my coping mechanisms, and be a positive impact in the community going forwards. I'd like to give a light trigger warning for mental health issues and legal issues. It's nothing that's going to be too deep and potentially not super triggering, but if those issues do get under your skin and make you uncomfortable, it's entirely okay to click away now. You can always ask a friend to summarize the video for you or look out for people who may or may not end up posting about this video. That's entirely okay. That being said, this all started back in the beginning of August, during which something very unfortunate happened to me and my family. Up to this point, I had already been dealing with some pretty severe mental health issues that have been around since I was very young. These are issues that I had been dealing with my entire life, but I'm not going to go into deep detail with them because it's not entirely relevant. The point being that during the beginning of August, we found out something that my brother had done. My brother was somebody I had grown up with my entire life and had been the person I primarily leaned on through all of my struggles growing up with mental health issues. However, unbeknownst to my family, my brother had been led into illegal activities online, and as a result, in the beginning of August, our house was raided by the police. Having your house stormed and torn apart by the police is pretty traumatizing in its own right, but the fallout that came after was almost just as bad. The whole event essentially tore my family apart, and as we delved into some pretty severe legal issues and getting a lawyer for my brother and dealing with all of the proceedings with the legal system in the United States, my family was functionally torn apart. All of us were severely impacted mentally, and all of us had already dealt with pre-existing issues, which resulted in many of us lashing out against each other and inwards towards ourselves. Up to this point, I had had a very serious history of self-harm behaviors. However, I had been clean for over 4 years, and I seriously did not want to relapse due to the fact I was incredibly proud of my improvement as a person as I had gone through therapy and counseling. However, I was not actively in counseling as I had graduated from high school, and up to that point, all of my counseling had been provided by my high school. And so, unfortunately, looking for an outlet to vent all of my frustrations, all of my angers and sadness, I stumbled upon the wrong video on YouTube at the wrong time. While I'm not sure if it was taken down, I can't find it now, but this video had a tutorial essentially on how to use certain websites to crack old accounts that were breached during the 2020 data breach. And at first, I was just curious. I said I was just curious, and then I tried it once. And once became twice, and twice ended up becoming something that I leaned on. I leaned on it for that adrenaline high, that excitement of finally getting into one and finding things on it. Most of these accounts, to my knowledge, were inactive. Most of them had very few items on it or seemed to have not been touched since the data breach or very shortly after. However, I have no way of knowing if these accounts were active or not. And even if they were inactive, that doesn't make it okay. And yet, I was very blinded. I was leaning on this for a sense of a high, for a reason to keep going, and it gave me the adrenaline I needed to get that sort of catharsis during my period in which I was down. But regardless, what I did was incredibly wrong, and in August, I was caught for it and rightfully banned by Animal Jam. When I initially was banned, I didn't know why. In fact, I had so far distanced myself from the people who were behind the accounts that I was getting into, it didn't even click in my mind that it was possible I had been banned for doing this. I had simply dissociated the action from the people behind it, and that is utterly disgusting. And I use the word disgusting deliberately. Looking back now in 2024, as somebody who has sought out help and am able to reflect on the past, this wasn't that long ago, and the fact that I had been so far disconnected from the same people in the community that I was attempting to help makes me feel gross, because these are the same people now that I want to help so badly, and in a community I care so much about, and I had been so far divided that I was willing to hurt these people and not even associate them with what I had done. And when I finally received that email from Animal Jam explaining why I had been banned, it was like I had been hit by a truck. It sort of dawned on me all at once what I had done, what this meant, how many people I had hurt, whether or not they came back to their account again, and simply how morally ironic I had been against everything that I was preaching on my account. It was at that time that I took down my initial video about me having been banned, and I essentially begged my fans to not harass Animal Jam for the ban. I didn't come forward right away because I was panicking and I didn't know what to do, and instead, before I announced my hiatus, I essentially took a day to think. I realized that I had essentially gone too far, that my mental health was going to the point where I was impacting others negatively, and that I seriously needed to step away from the community, unless I was risking hurting others again. It was at this time that I decided to go on hiatus, and at this point I had not told anybody why I had been banned. I'd still claim behind the scenes to my friends that it was for no reason, and in public I simply said that it was complicated and that I didn't want to talk about it. And so I went on hiatus to figure out what to do next and to work on myself to hopefully become a better person. During this time, little by little, I did open up to some of my friends. It started out with a few friends from FriendSoup who I felt that I could trust the most with the information, but I was too scared to tell anybody else during that time. I was afraid that they would leave me, that they would see me as the horrible person that I saw myself as, and so for the longest time, nobody knew. During the time in which I was trying to figure out how to tell people and what I was going to do, I decided that I definitely needed help. I reached out to my college and was able to secure therapy once every 2 weeks, and I've been going ever since then. My personal situation in my family life has not gotten better, however, my means to which to cope with it definitely have. My meetings with my counselor has allowed me to see better ways to cope with my situation and has essentially given me a reality check of sorts. I was way too deep in the Animal Jam community, and as a result of being way too deep, I lashed out at the very thing that I was coping with, and I did what I did. I came back to Animal Jam in December with a newfound goal in mind. I told the people that I cared most about what had happened, and they showed me their support in allowing me to discover who I was and become a better person. I decided that I was going to talk about the topic when I felt ready, when I felt like I could prove to the Animal Jam community that I was improving and that I was actively trying to be a good member of the community in spite of what I had done in the past. And ever since I've come back in December, I have been trying incredibly hard to prove that, not just to you guys, but to myself. I've been trying to do things that I feel like could at least make up a little bit for what I have done. But that doesn't make the stupid thing that I did go away. I still did it, I still made the impact, and I still did seriously hurt people. And while I can acknowledge what I have done and I can try to improve in the future, the best thing that I can do is keep in mind what I have done in the past and what I can do in the future. And I'm not asking for an acceptance to my apology from anybody. In fact, I don't think apologizing would be the right word to use here. If you say I'm sorry, that's something that you say when you've done an accident. But what I did, it wasn't an accident. It was obviously intentional and something that I did whilst being very well old enough and very well of mind to know that what I was doing was wrong. So I guess what I'm doing here is trying to explain what I want to do going forward and take accountability for my actions and how I want to prove to you guys that I could be more honest and more open and more trustworthy in the future. I want to be very clear in saying that since I was banned last year, I haven't touched cracking Animal Jam accounts at all. In fact, I have been staying pretty far away from anyone in the community that does anything even remotely shady whatsoever. And that is in part why I made some decisions, such as closing down my Discord server, so I didn't accidentally platform people with shady intentions or people who have done questionable things. There are many people in the community who have done some pretty questionable things in the past, and evidently I am very much one of them. And if you're watching this video and you're doing something similar, or you have done something similar, I just want you to know, don't do what I did. Get help right away. And don't be afraid to reach out to people. There are people out there who are willing to listen, people even within the Animal Jam community, and I'd like to say that I am one of them. You can reach out to me on Instagram anytime to ask me about any advice. You can ask me what you need to do or where to seek help or who to talk to, or you can even talk to me about it. You can tell me what you're going through, and I might not always have the right advice to give, but at the very least, I'll listen. And I want you to know that there are adults outside of the Animal Jam community who can help you as well. Maybe not your family, but you might have people at your school, or in a club that you're in, or in a community that you're a part of. There's always somebody that's out there to listen to you, and doing something like this, even if it seems harmless, even if you think that maybe if you rationalize in your head that there aren't people actively using these accounts anymore, that it's okay, you're still being destructive, not only towards the community, but towards yourself, because these coping mechanisms, they're not healthy, and you never know whether or not that account is active or not. And if you've done something like I've done, the best thing that you can do is acknowledge what you've done and try to continue forward with being a better person. There are multiple steps to that, and it's definitely not an easy experience, but you can start by finding help and doing your best to perhaps either distance yourself entirely from the community, if that is a source of your stress, or try to move forward and making it a better place. That being said, if you're watching this video, you don't have to accept an apology. You don't have to be okay with me, and you can very well, if you wish, unsubscribe from me and never watch from me again. You can post about this, and you could say whatever you wish to say in the comments. The only comments that I'll be removing are ones that are actively attacking me or attacking my friends, because my friends are not at fault for this. Nobody that I've known is at fault for this. I kept this from everybody for a very, very long time. And while even now I feel like I'm better and I'm willing to prove to the community that I am a better person, that doesn't make it not my fault. It's my fault, and the best that I can do going forward is acknowledge that and do my best to never replicate those behaviors again. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you all around.